Welcome to the Project Management Masterclass. By the end of this masterclass, you'll know how to manage your time, allocate tasks, and help your team work together. So what is project management? Project management is made up of a huge diversity of skills. Our business cat here is giving us the definition. The project management is the practice of planning and controlling the work of a team to achieve specific goals. Broken down into its simplest form, project management is really coming up with a to-do list to achieve an end goal and then helping your team achieve everything on that to-do list within the set time frame. Who does it? Really, anyone can be a project manager. Some people are drawn to it more naturally because they are an organized person or someone who naturally shows leadership, and they may enjoy project management. But ultimately, these skills of organization, leadership are skills that can be learnt. So anyone can be a project manager. And how do you do it? Well, we're going to go through some tips now. One of the first things that project managers need to think about is time management. A really useful tool for time management is a Gantt chart. You can see here in this image, a Gantt chart is a to-do list with a timeline next to it where you can block out chunks of time to allocate when certain tasks will be done. You can also add a column next to the tasks to allocate who is responsible for each task, whether it's a person or a team. You can see this is a very useful visual tool because it gives a real bird's eye view of the project. You can see the big picture. You can see what's happening in which order, when the busiest times are, what can be happening at the same time, and when people might have availability to help each other. For example, the person in charge of task 6 may have a lot of free time leading up to that, and they might be able to help out the people in charge of task 1, 2, or 3. So there's a good opportunity to see who's available, who's not, when the busy times are, and when there's more freedom as well. Little fact about the Gantt chart, it was named after its inventor, Henry Gantt. The second tip for time management is to work backwards. So sometimes the hardest part of project management is figuring out that first task, what needs to happen right at the beginning. So an easy way to flip that is to think about the end goal and really visualize what you want it to look like. What do you want to achieve? And work backwards from there. For example, if what you're working towards is having a stall and an exhibition where you will be pitching your idea, your product or service, you might want to visualize that stall and think about what it looks like. Do you want to have a prototype of your product? Do you want to have a slideshow? Do you want to have an interactive screen where people can be looking at a sample website or a sample app? Do you want to have posters, flyers, business cards, a name or slogan printed out somewhere? Do you want to have a 3D model on a screen or even a virtual reality experience? What do you want it to look like? And then think about what needs to happen for each of those elements to be achieved. For the slideshow, for example, someone will need to be the designer and take care of the creative elements of that slideshow. Someone will need to be the researcher and look at the data and the statistics that is going to be the information displayed in that slideshow. For the prototype, you may want to have something 3D printed. So for something to be 3D printed, you think back. So someone needs to learn, it's a book in to use a 3D printer. Before that, someone needs to have a design for it to be printed. So someone needs to use computer aided design to create a model. So perhaps someone needs to learn those skills. And even before that, you need to have a sketch of the model that you will be building in 3D on the computer before it's printed. So just working those steps backwards about what needs to happen. And even before that, when you're thinking about the sketch and you're getting more prompting for your product, you may want to do research for what's already been done before. So you can get some ideas about what has worked in the past and what hasn't and why. The third tip for time management is always allow extra time. So if you think a task is going to take an hour, allow an hour and a half. It's as simple as that. Usually things do take longer than we anticipate. We often tend to be time optimists and think we can get things done quite quickly. And it usually takes longer, and that's why we run late. So it's better to assume things are going to take longer than you might think. So if you think, yeah, I'll definitely have it done in an hour, remember you're probably being a time optimist, and add an extra half an hour to give you that buffer. And if you don't end up needing that extra half hour, that's great. You can either use that time to relax, or you can use that time to do an even better job and maybe add something a little extra to what you've got done. The fourth tip is to do less and do it well. So as I was speaking earlier about imagining your end product, your exhibition, for example, your stall, if you're going to have lots of elements to it, you will have less time to create each element. So you won't end up with something as good. Perhaps it may be better to choose 1, 2, or 3 elements that you do really well. So try and do less and spend more time on it and do it well and have that better end result. The next tip is to multitask. So you can see in the Gantt chart that multiple tasks are happening at the same time. You can see tasks 3, 4, and 5 are all happening at once. So sometimes you don't need to be waiting for one thing to be done for the next. So perhaps for the slideshow, someone could be doing the research for the data at the same time as someone's doing the design. You don't need to wait for the information to start designing, the layout, maybe finding some graphics, all that can be happening, and then you can add the text in later. So perhaps the research and the design can actually be happening simultaneously. The next tip is to prioritize. So that's picking what the most important element is of your end goal. So perhaps, as we're talking about with the stall or the exhibition stall, perhaps always keep in mind what is the most important things. So if you can't get anything else done, what's the number one thing you want to have on that stall? And it might be your prototype. So this is where it comes to having a plan B, this final bit of advice. And your plan B is to fall back on your priority. So that means if you're running out of time and you're getting stressed because you're getting close to when things need to be done, fall back to your plan B, and that is to focus on your priority item. So you've already prioritized that, yes, the prototype is the most important thing. So fall back to plan B and just get the prototype done. If you're running out of time, just get the most important thing done. The next thing a project manager needs to think about is allocating tasks. So in time management, that was really coming up with your to-do list and allocating chunks of time and making sure things get done by the due date. Another challenging thing can be figuring out who's going to do each of those tasks. Sometimes the easiest way to get someone to complete a task is to ask for volunteers rather than to just nominate someone. This way, when you ask for volunteers and say, who would like to complete this task? Is anyone interested? You will have people nominate themselves to do things that they are interested in and things that they are skilled in. So that way you're going to be playing to your strengths. Sometimes people are a little self-conscious about nominating themselves for a task. So I strongly recommend nominating others if you think that they have the right skills and strengths to be undertaking a task. So perhaps you've noticed someone is really good at drawing and you might say, oh, Amy, I've noticed you're really artistic. Maybe you could take on the designing of the slideshow. Is that something you'd be interested in? And you might give Amy that, vote of confidence, that little boost so that she feels that she can take on that task. So you can ask for volunteers, nominate, suggest people, and that's probably the best way of allocating those tasks. And if really you can't find anyone to complete a task, perhaps you can talk to other people that might be able to assist you outside of your group, teachers or other external third parties who can assist you as well. And finally, sharing the load. So that's just making sure that no one specific team member is taking on more than their fair share. Some people are very keen, will take on lots and lots of tasks, and some people will sort of either be a little nervous or a little slack and won't really take on enough. So it's really just noticing as a project manager who's taking on too much, who maybe has some availability, and redistributing that. And that can just be done really gently with a conversation. Just, you know, Steve, I've noticed that you've taken on a lot of these tasks. You know, are you feeling like you're going to be able to get all of those done? I've noticed that Jim has a lot of, you know, has a bit of availability at the moment. Maybe he can take on one of those tasks and help you out. Okay, so we've spoken about time management, getting that to-do list and allocating time and getting things done by date. We've spoken about allocating the tasks and how we get people to complete different things. And finally, it's about teamwork, and that's really checking in on your team. So making sure that they are okay with the task that they've been given and that it is going to be done in the allocated time. So one piece of advice around teamwork is this idea of step up, step back. And this really just means noticing if you are contributing a lot, if you are speaking a lot, and stepping back and allowing that space for others to be involved and to chip in as well. This may be as simple as asking someone else a question. If you notice you've been speaking a lot, providing that space for someone else to chip in, you might just, you know, say, Sarah, what do you think? Have you done something like this before? Do you think that silver would be a good color for our target audience? Or any sort of engaging question, asking people for input and advice. Next one is coaching and supporting. So this is a really nice part of being a project manager, and it's really just complimenting people. So noticing when someone's, you know, working hard on something, or something's looking really great, or they're putting a real effort, and just saying something. Saying, you know, I've noticed, you know, you've worked really hard on this prototype. I really appreciate all the work that you've done. That looks fantastic. And supporting is also about noticing when someone might need a bit of help, if they seem a bit stressed or overwhelmed, or perhaps not really engaged and not doing much. So that's just having a conversation and sort of asking how they're going, if there's any help that you can offer, or maybe you can get in someone else to help as well. The next point is this idea of yes and this is just a way of communicating when someone offers an opinion that's different to yours. And rather than reacting by saying no, but you react by saying yes and. So you acknowledge their opinion, their contribution, and then you add on your own alternative suggestions. So yes, that sounds like it could work. And also I thought we could try doing it a different way. So people feel heard, they feel acknowledged, they don't feel like they've been shut down, they feel like their idea matters, and you're offering something additional as well, rather than something in competition. The next tip here is to check in. So that's simply just going around, not sort of micromanaging, not, you know, asking people how they're going every 5 minutes, but every now and then sort of casually, you know, checking in with people and asking how they're going, where they're at, if they need any assistance with anything, and asking for help is the final bit of advice. So if you notice that people do need a bit of support, then it's totally fine to ask for help and get assistance from teachers or from any third party that can help you with your project. And remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. So feel secure in the fact that you're doing the right thing when you ask for help. So I'll leave you with this final bit of advice that I mentioned earlier. And just do remember to try and do less and do it well. So if you're feeling like you've taken on too much, you're a little bit overwhelmed, really just focus on your priorities and try and get them done. And I really wish you all the best of luck.